Hi, friends, and welcome to the Life Optimizer podcast, where science meets everyday life. We believe that tiny changes lead to a whole new you. I'm your host, Viktoriya. I'm a Yale trained midwife, women's health provider, and hormone nerd, and I am on a mission to help you understand your body like never before. Today, we're diving deep into the most pivotal but often misunderstood aspect of women's health, and that's gut health and how it shifts and changes across the three core stages of a woman's hormonal life: premenopause, perimenopause, and postmenopause. Whether you're in your 20s, 40s, or 60s, this episode is for you. We'll connect the dots between the gut microbiome, your hormones, the HPATG axis, which is the communication network between your brain, your adrenal glands, your thyroid, and your ovaries. And we're going to show you how you can use this knowledge to optimize your mood, your energy, metabolism, immunity at every phase. Before we go on, I do have a favor to ask. If you're enjoying the content that we're providing, please do hit the subscribe button so that we can continue to provide this content. It really helps us. It's an easy way to support the channel, and it's an easy way for you to support the work. Thanks so much for being here. Okay, let's get going. So let's do a quick science refresher about your gut. Your gut is very, very important. And really, we actually call it the second brain. It has nerve activity that affect a lot of things in your health. Okay. So the gut microbiome is a dynamic community of trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi. These little organisms influence everything from estrogen detoxification to serotonin production. And we know that over 90% of your serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter, is produced in your gut. Your gut interfaces directly with the HPATG axis, the hormonal highway that connects your stress response from the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland that then goes to your thyroid and affects your thyroid metabolism and your reproductive organs. That's the gonads, right? Ovaries for women and testes for men. Disruptions in the gut, whether that's from inflammation, from poor diet, or stress, can misfire these hormonal communications and disrupt estrogen and progesterone levels, okay? And impact everything from PMS to perimenopausal weight gain. So really important for us to understand the gut, to understand how it works, what it does, and really to know how to best optimize it at different stages of our lives. Okay. And really, when we say the gut, in general, we're talking about the small and the large intestine. I mean, there are many, many organs that feed into that, but really we're talking about the activity generally in the small and large intestine. There's some activity in terms of the microbiome in the stomach, but generally that's what we're talking about. In case you're like, what is the gut? What is that? So that's what we're usually talking about. So let's talk about the life stages and how you can help yourself, your daughters, your friends, your sisters really optimize and understand so that you can optimize your health and the health of people in your life. Okay. So stage one is pre-menopause. So that's your 20s and your 30s. And the primary goals in terms of how we want to affect gut health in pre-menopause in your 20s or 30s, we have three goals. We want to help our body regulate menstrual cycles. We want to help detoxify estrogen, and really we want stable mood and energy. Okay, so what's happening in your 20s and 30s? Your hormones are usually at their peak. Okay, estrogen fluctuates naturally through your menstrual cycle, and the progesterone rises after ovulation to balance that estrogen. Okay, but if the gut is inflamed or sluggish, it can't clear out used estrogen. So we clear out most of our used estrogen through the gut. A little bit of it is cleared out through our urine, but mostly through the gut. If our gut is inflamed or sluggish, that process of excreting estrogen can be disrupted, and that can lead to symptoms like PMS, mood swings, maybe breast tenderness, even acne. Okay. And so we see that with hormonal acne, especially in your 20s. Okay. So estrogen again, is detoxified in the liver through phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification enzymes, and then it's excreted in the gut. Poor digestion or constipation means that estrogen is recycled. You have bacteria that have or code for an enzyme called beta glucuronidase. That enzyme then, if you have a lot of that bacteria from, again, chronic stress or dysbiosis, where that bacteria grows more so as part of your natural flora, produces an enzyme that then takes that estrogen. So the estrogen has been converted or sort of marked for excretion. It has a little group attached to it, and so that big beta glucuronidase comes to the estrogen molecule, cuts that group off, and allows that estrogen to be reabsorbed and reused, causing you to have extra estrogen that was meant to be excreted to be recirculated into your system. So your body's producing estrogen, and instead of excreting the estrogen that needs to go, your body's reabsorbing it. And so it causes a high estrogen state. And what that does is it gives you worsened hormonal symptoms. Okay. So how do we support your gut? How do we support hormones? We can do two big things. One is through nutrition and one is through our lifestyle. Okay. So nutrition. To help your liver detoxify estrogen, and this is at any stage, but we're talking in your premenopausal stage where you're in your 20s and 30s, to help your liver detoxify estrogen, what you can do is you can eat cruciferous vegetables, things like broccoli, broccolini, Brussels sprouts. All of these contain DIM, diindolylmethane, which supports estrogen detox. So cruciferous vegetables in general, for general health, are really important for liver detoxification. They have compounds that help your liver detoxify not just estrogen, but other compounds as well. And so you want to incorporate these into your, normal diet, okay? Eating protein at every meal helps stabilize your blood sugar and supports, again, those liver detoxification enzymes. And you can start doing something that's called seed cycling, eating flax seeds and pumpkin seeds in the follicular phase. So generally speaking, in the first 2 weeks of your cycle, and then eating sesame and sunflower seeds in the luteal phase or the last 2 weeks of your cycle. This supports your natural hormonal rhythm. What else can you do? You can also change your lifestyle or have a lifestyle that supports your hormones. Okay. So one thing is avoid over exercising. Over exercising spikes your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, which then suppresses ovulation and suppresses progesterone production. So those crazy diets, in the summer diet, the crazy exercise routines where you're just like killing yourself at the gym and eating hardly anything to have, that bikini body ready in 3 months, those really hurt your metabolism and hurt your hormones and really put a stressor on your gut health. And so really reconsidering doing that. Okay. And then the other lifestyle factor is sleep, right? We know how important sleep is, and really aiming, even in your 20s and 30s, when maybe sleep isn't a huge priority, but sleep really helps stabilize that gut lining and helps your body repair the gut as you're sleeping. So really aiming for 7 to 9 hours of sleep to allow for that repair process to happen and to allow for those hormones to stay stabilized and balanced is really important. Okay, perimenopause. Perimenopause is that next stage. So that stage starts generally in your late 30s, early 40s, can start as early as like 35. And so this is kind of a hormonal roller coaster. Progesterone is dropping, cortisol is rising, and your gut is really taking a hit during perimenopause. And we see a lot of new symptoms come out in perimenopause for women, even that haven't had those symptoms before or haven't suffered any symptoms of increased intestinal permeability, things like that, or mood symptoms. We see a lot of things come out. So we definitely have a lot of things that we can do to help support our body through that. So perimenopause is less about a decline. I don't want to call it like a decline, but more about dysregulation. And I want to really explain that so we really understand what that dysregulation is. So your hormone signals are fluctuating wildly in perimenopause, especially as you get later into your mid 40s. Okay, so the adrenals are under a lot of pressure. Your gut lining is often inflamed due to the buildup of chronic stress, poor sleep, and blood sugar instability, not eating regularly enough, not eating in ways that help support your blood sugar. So your gut lining is inflamed from this as you're entering perimenopause oftentimes, okay? Progesterone production begins to decline, and often that happens years before estrogen starts to decline. So progesterone starts to decline first, and then later on estrogen starts to decline. Both are important, but we're going to talk about, what happens. So when progesterone declines, this leads to estrogen being unopposed and cortisol becoming dominant in your perimenopause years. This is a natural process that happens, but again, we can help support our body through it, okay? So what can you experience, in perimenopause? You can experience as these shifts are happening in perimenopause, as the hormonal shifts and changes are happening, you can experience mood swings, anxiety, insomnia, midsection weight gain. So usually that means insulin resistance is happening if you're starting to gain weight around the middle, around your belly area. You might see that you have more food intolerances. So the things that you used to be able to eat really kind of make you feel gross after you eat them, or give you, more bloating, more gas, more diarrhea. You'll see changes in your menstrual cycle. So how does this all work? Let's have an overview of the physiologic changes in perimenopause related to the gut. So 3 big things are happening, and then we're going to review each one and go through what we can do to really help support that. So declining progesterone. Remember, we talked about the progesterone declines. What it does is it removes the calming effect of progesterone that the adrenals, they try to compensate for the ovaries not releasing enough hormones, right? That progesterone dropping first and then estrogen. So your adrenal glands try to compensate. Your body's like, I'm not getting enough progesterone. I'm not getting enough progesterone. Make more. And so your adrenals start to try to compensate. And that actually causes an increase in cortisol, not progesterone. And I'll explain why. And that elevated cortisol then leads to intestinal permeability, or maybe you've heard of leaky gut. It leads to inflammation, leads to blood sugar spikes, and then which then leads to more estrogen dysregulation, which is the thing we're trying to avoid. So let's break this down. So progesterone is not just a reproductive hormone. It actually has powerful effects on your brain and the nervous system, okay? So it acts as a neurosteroid, meaning it crosses the blood-brain barrier and goes to your brain and attaches to the GABA A receptor. The gamma aminobutyric acid in the brain is the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. What it does is it gives you a sense of calm, it helps you fall asleep, and it reduces anxiety. And so when progesterone is increased, it attaches to that receptor, and what it does is it gives you a sense of calm, right? It helps you sleep and it helps you reduce anxiety. When progesterone is decreased, it's not doing that work, okay? So what happens in perimenopause? Progesterone, again, first hormone to drop. As progesterone levels fall, those GABA receptors are not activated as much, which reduces that calming signal. And what does that look like in your life when progesterone drops? It looks like increased anxiety. It also looks like mood swings, insomnia, even in women that never struggled with these symptoms before. So women who have never struggled with insomnia can start to have symptoms of insomnia because of this lowering of progesterone effect. So how can you support your body? Magnesium glycinate can enhance GABA activity naturally. So that's a supplement that you can take, and we're going to talk extensively about what things you can take and what you can do. What else can help upregulate GABA production? So you can naturally upregulate GABA production by finding ways to reduce and manage stress. So deep breathing, square breathing, all those things really help reduce stress and help your body upregulate the production of GABA. Scheduling light exposure in the morning. When you wake up in the morning, getting that sunlight, that sunlight exposure in the morning, optimizing your circadian rhythm, where when you wake up and go to sleep at the same time every day, really aligning your natural rhythm of being awake and being asleep with the rhythm of the sun, and having that consistent sleep schedule all help upregulate GABA and give you that calming effect. So when progesterone levels fall in perimenopause, and then later on again, estrogen levels fall, the adrenal glands try to compensate for these, and they for the lower ovarian hormones that this causes. And what happens is cortisol surges. Okay. So as ovarian production of estrogen and progesterone begins to decrease, the adrenal glands are recruited to take over hormone synthesis. Again, your body says, hey, I don't have enough hormones, make more estrogen and progesterone. And so what they do is the adrenal glands produce a precursor called DHEA. DHEA is produced and then can be converted to estrogen or testosterone. However, if a woman is chronically stressed, the adrenals prioritize making cortisol over making sex hormones. Okay. And so what happens is the pregnenolone steal happens, where that DHEA that was earmarked to make estrogen and testosterone now gets stolen and allows for even more cortisol to be made. Okay. So that really traps us into what we call the stress trap. Okay. Chronic stress, whether that's physical, emotional, or metabolic stress, leads to elevated cortisol. The high cortisol suppresses thyroid function. It interrupts communication along that HPA-TG axis, and then further reduces ovulation and progesterone production, which is the thing that we want in the first place. So what does this feel like? This feels like poor stress tolerance. The littlest things stress you out. The things that you used to be able to handle easily, now really you are having a hard time handling, right? That cortisol is just soaring. Sleep disruptions, especially if you're waking up between 2 and 4 a.m., that really is a sign of high cortisol. Okay. Low resilience, you feel like you're wired but tired. You feel like you're awake, you're wired, but you're exhausted at the same time. So what are your primary goals? Your primary goals in perimenopause are to reduce inflammation, to support your adrenal health, and to prevent insulin resistance. Okay. And how do we support this? We support this by using adaptogens. So things like ashwagandha or rhodiola, they buffer cortisol production. And then really adopting stress buffering habits, setting boundaries with people that you feel like stress you out, meditation, time in nature, playtime with your kids, right? Being playful, getting outside, maybe, engaging in a sport, anything that really decreases your stress levels. Okay. So the third downstream effect that happens is elevated cortisol. You probably guessed this, right? We talked about it already. And elevated cortisol leads to intestinal permeability. Maybe you've heard of leaky gut. Okay. So that also leads to inflammation, blood sugar spikes, and more estrogen dysregulation. Okay. So how does this all work? So high cortisol changes the tight junction proteins in the gut lining. So your gut has cells one next to one, they're kind of next to each other, little, like set up like a little like little boxes of a train, or like a fence. High cortisol changes the tight junction proteins in the gut, leading to increased intestinal permeability, where stuff in your gut can get through the between the cells that of your gut and just bypass the receptors and get through. And so this allows lipopolysaccharides from gram-negative bacteria to enter the bloodstream, and this triggers systemic inflammation. And lipopolysaccharides are the outside of the gram-negative bacteria that are highly inflammatory. And when they get through that leaky membrane, I should say, or leaky corridors between the cells, when that happens, that causes an inflammatory response. The lipopolysaccharides enter your body, and your body recognizes them as foreign objects and starts to attack and that increases inflammation because your immune system is starting to work more and more. And so, what else happens when your cortisol is high? Well, one more thing about the inflammation piece is that the inflammation is systemic. It doesn't stay in that spot of leakiness. Okay, it becomes systemic. Cortisol also drives gluconeogenesis, which is sugar production in the liver. Okay, so which causes your blood sugar to go up and then crash, go up and then crash. And cortisol not only increases your blood sugar, but it also affects insulin function directly. So the high cortisol, the systemic inflammation that it causes, impair insulin signaling, which we know is really, really important. So it suppresses insulin secretion, so how much insulin your body is secreting, and over time makes cells less responsive to insulin's action, which leads to insulin resistance. Inflammation and erratic blood sugar affect the liver's ability to perform the detoxification processes that the liver naturally performs, and affect that beta glucuronidase activity in the gut, which leads to estrogen being recirculated instead of cleared. Okay. So this downward spiral of high cortisol, gut permeability leading to inflammation, then to insulin resistance, plus estrogen recirculation, this worsens symptoms of fatigue, brain fog, mood swings, and weight gain. Okay. So what may you be feeling? You might be having more bloating, more food sensitivities. You might notice your energy crash after meals. You might have more puffiness, more inflamed body. You might have trouble losing weight, even if you have healthy habits. So all of those things can be happening as a result of everything we just talked about. So how do you support this? You can support your body and you can support your gut by including prebiotic fibers in the foods that you're eating. Okay, so what are prebiotic fibers? There's, many lists and ideas. Inulin is one of them. So some fruits and vegetables that have inulin are bananas, onions, artichokes, flax seeds, all have inulin, and they're prebiotic fibers that will feed your gut bacteria and include polyphenol rich foods like berries, green tea, and turmeric. Work on stabilizing your blood sugar with balanced meals. Eating protein, fiber, and healthy fat at every meal is going to be important, and we'll break down the details in just a moment. And then support your gut lining with collagen, glutamine, and zinc carnosine. All of those really help support your gut lining. So let's review. How can you support gut and hormone balance in perimenopause? How can you support your gut so that that crazy cortisol spiral and lowering of progesterone doesn't affect you as much? There are really three big buckets of support, and I want to break it down more from what we just talked about. So one bucket is focusing on your nutrition, then working or maybe considering some supplements or adaptogens, and then considering some lifestyle interventions. Okay. So, nutrition strategies. You need to, or we all need to work on mastering or improving our blood sugar. Our blood sugar, when it improves, it makes our hormones stable. So, how do we do it? Eat every 4 to 5 hours. Avoid cortisol driven crashes. So don't go long periods of time without eating. So some people do fast overnight. They do like a 12-hour fast overnight. If you're already in a high cortisol state, that might be too long for you. Your body might feel extra stressed if you start to fast for 12 hours at a time. So maybe start with something like, fasting or not eating for 8 hours. And then if you wanted to increase to 12 hours, that would be fine. But just see how you feel first. Because I know that fasting definitely helps insulin resistance and helps you be more sensitive to insulin. But again, if you're entering perimenopause at a high cortisol, high stress state, this is not the time to be doing long fasting. Okay, it might be stressful. Focus on what you're eating, build your plate, protein, healthy fat, fiber, and then slow digesting carbs. Okay. Protein, you want to aim for 30 grams of protein per meal. So 3 times a day, you're eating 30 grams. You're doing a healthy fat, something like an avocado, and then you're doing a fiber-rich vegetable. And if you are eating carbs, you're really focusing on carbs that are slowly digested. So things that have lots of fiber, complex carbohydrates, things like that. Like, if you're doing rice, you're doing brown rice. If you're doing bread, you're doing, sprouted bread or whole wheat bread, something that is harder for our body to digest, that has higher fiber content. Okay. And then you can do this little trick, which is add apple cider vinegar. So 1 tablespoon diluted in water, usually at least 8 ounces of water before meals, to reduce that after meal blood sugar spike. So there's some data to say that helps. The other things help as well. What else can you do with nutrition? Help estrogen be detoxed from your body. Okay. So that means eating cruciferous vegetables. We're looking at 2 to 3 cups of cruciferous vegetables daily. That is a lot of cruciferous vegetables. Of course, there are supplements that you can take to help with this, but at least incorporating cruciferous vegetables, like you're making dinner, you're thinking or planning dinner, grabbing broccolini or Brussels sprouts, or, incorporating them into salads, things like that, as part of your normal food that you eat, will make it easier for your liver to detox, whether it's, even if you're not meeting that 2 cup a day sort of quota, right, that the data supports. Even a little bit is still going to your liver and still helping your liver detox. That's at least my 2 cents. You can consider supplements like calcium G-glucarate to lower that beta glucuronidase activity and help your estrogen get cleared out, rather than being recirculated. You can add ground flax seeds, about 2 tablespoons per day. That also helps support estrogen balance and feeds the good gut bacteria. So it's 2 things that it does. And really work on controlling inflammation. And how can we do that? We can eliminate gut irritants. So this is a hard one because, there's already a lot going on. You're already feeling under stress, and you might say, well, eliminating these things is way too much. You don't have to do anything. These are just ideas, right? Especially through that perimenopause period where your hormones are up and down all the time, really to help your body optimize. So gut irritants are alcohol, processed sugar, seed oils, and gluten. So what you can do is you can try to eliminate one of these things and see how you feel. Do that for 4 to 6 weeks, see how you feel. And if you feel better, if you have better energy, if you're sleeping better, great. Then maybe add something else and, something else. It's a slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. Been there, done that. It is definitely hard to pay attention to what has what ingredients, but these are just a couple things to consider. And then prioritize for that inflammation control, prioritize omega-3 rich foods. So wild salmon, chia seeds, walnuts, to help your gut lining and help hormone signaling. Okay. In terms of supplements, there are some supplements that have been found to be helpful in the perimenopause years. Magnesium glycinate is one of them, right? It helps with those GABA receptors, supports GABA production, I should say, relieves constipation. It helps with calming the nervous system. And it also helps reduce mast cell histamine release. So that's another topic for another day. But the symptoms of mast cell histamine release are common in perimenopause gut flares. And so this also helps calm that down. You can consider ashwagandha. And then the ashwagandha, what it does is it lowers cortisol, it supports thyroid function, and improves resilience to stress. Another adaptogen that you can try is rhodiola rosea. It boosts energy, mental focus, and doesn't feel overstimulating. And then it's great if you feel burnt out and foggy. So that's another thing to consider. Anytime you are adding any kind of adaptogen, any kind of supplement, definitely consult your provider to make sure that all of this is safe for you. It doesn't interact with medications that you're on, because again, they are affecting all of these processes that we talked about. Always start at a low dose and increase slowly. Don't, get 10 supplements and start 10 supplements in a day. Do one thing at a quarter of the dose for a week and slowly work up. Okay, you can also support your body by taking in or eating or taking as a supplement digestive bitters. If you have bloating or sluggish digestion, you can add bitters before meals, or you can add a comprehensive digestive enzyme. And so there are different ones on the market. Okay, lifestyle interventions. You probably guessed it. Prioritize sleep as hormone therapy. Sleep is your hormone therapy. It's going to help stabilize your hormones. Aim for that 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Use blue light blockers at night, or change your screens so that they're not blue, that they have a red tint. Take the magnesium, do some gentle stretching, turn down lights in the house during the as the sun sets. You can monitor your heart rate variability using various devices to see how your heart rate variability is. So that's another thing that you can monitor and improve. And then in terms of exercise, really you're going to be transitioning to doing more strength training and less cardio. Okay, really building muscle as your metabolic organ is going to take center stage in perimenopause. Really, you want to start with 2 to 3 times per week, doing complex compound lifts, things like squats, rows, presses, right? You're wanting to do compound lifts to really build muscle again, safely. Definitely talk to somebody who can walk you through it. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to have injuries, but really muscle is a metabolic organ. It's going to help your insulin help you control your blood sugar, help give you better insulin sensitivity, help manage weight gain. It helps with stress. There are so many things that exercise does. You want to swap excessive high intensity interval training for true sprint interval training or true high intensity interval training. So what am I talking about here? So a lot of times when we say HIIT or high intensity interval training, we mean for an hour we're doing, all kinds of different things that really wear us out. True sprint interval training or high intensity interval training, you shouldn't be able to do for an hour. You really shouldn't. Really, what we talk about in perimenopause, and really this is the work of Dr. Stacy Sims. She has a book published on this. She has lots of information on both her website. She has information on Instagram. So Dr. Stacy Sims talks a lot about this, and she will do a better job than I will. But really, sprint interval training and high intensity interval training, this is where you push as hard as you possibly can. So something like sprinting down the street as hard as you possibly can, maximal effort for 30 seconds, and then give yourself a couple minutes to get back to that steady state, and then do that again. Initially, women tend to not be able to do this more than 1 or 2 times, because again, you're giving your full effort. You're not saving anything. And that type of stress or that type of pressure create the same effect, I should say, that estrogen and progesterone were creating before. So you should be able to, again, start with 1 to 2 sprints, and then maybe build up to 4 to 5 of those sessions where you sprint all out, nothing left in the tank for 30 seconds. Take a break, 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes, however long it takes to go back to steady state, and then do that again. You're not doing high intensity interval training for an hour. 1, that's not true high intensity interval training. 2, it's really stressing your body out, especially in perimenopause. So really doing muscle building is going to be key here. Okay. You can add walking after meals. That really helps control blood sugar as well. So that's something to consider. Okay. And then another lifestyle intervention is mind body stress recovery. Okay. Breath work is really important here, either doing square breathing, box breathing, other people call it, anything to really help you calm yourself down and manage stress, whether that's different ways to stimulate your vagus nerve. Some people wear vagus nerve stimulating wearables. Some people, so other free ways to stimulate your vagus nerve is humming. So I don't know if you know any people that hum to themselves, they're calming themselves down. Cold exposure is another one. And again, based on Dr. Stacy Sims' work for women, especially women in perimenopause and menopause, cold exposure shouldn't be as cold as typically we see done for men. So really, women need about 55 to 65 degree cold exposure, and not colder. Colder than that actually stresses women's bodies out. So really pay attention to the temperature if you're doing cold exposure, again, based on Dr. Stacy Sims' work. Support your cortisol rhythms in terms of mind body stress recovery with that morning sunlight. Schedule that sunlight time 10 to 20 minutes before 10 a.m., right? Preferably right as you wake up. Within that first hour of waking up, you're exposing your face to the sun, and align your circadian rhythm and have the same sleep schedule as we've talked about before. Okay, let's transition to postmenopause. So that's, you're about 50-ish, 52-ish. Generally, average age is 51, 52 for menopause to begin. So postmenopause, this phase is about restoration. Estrogen is no longer pulsing. Your gut lining is thinner. Your bones need more love, and your mood and memory really rely more than ever on controlling inflammation. And so really, postmenopause is marked by low flatlined hormones, especially estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is critical for your gut lining. And so it is also critical for bone turnover, brain function, insulin sensitivity. So really an important hormone. And we're entering a stage where estrogen is just not around. So without it, the gut becomes more permeable, right? That gut permeability is happening. It's more reactive and it's less efficient at detoxifying. So we're going to have some goals to really address that. So some primary goals are protecting your gut barrier in postmenopausal years, helping your immune system be resilient, and helping your bones and your brain stay healthy. Okay, so what's happening? Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone levels are significantly declined. Estrogen is a gut protector, so that is now missing. And so that leads to thinning of that gut lining. It leads to increased sensitivity to pathogens and inflammation. Okay, you're at greater risk for osteoporosis, insulin resistance, and even cognitive decline. So estrogen normally supports those tight junctions in the gut and keeps immune responses in check. So those tight junctions that we talked about, estrogen supports, and now they're just naturally less tight. And so loss of estrogen allows the gut to become more permeable or more leakier, as some people say, which really leads to a chronic low-grade inflammation that happens because things are getting through to the inside that are triggering an immune response. This causes a worsening in insulin sensitivity and causes more bone loss. Okay, Dr. Lisa Mosconi explains the effects of estrogen in her amazing book, The XX Brain. Highly recommend it. So that's something to consider. All about brain health, all about estrogen, and how it affects brain health, or hormones, I should say, and how it affects brain health. Okay, so how do we support the gut and hormones in the postmenopausal years? Protein is queen or king in these years. So you want to aim for about 1 to 1.5, or really, if you want to get technical, 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. You can even say, you could say 1 to 1.5, if that's easy to remember, grams per kilogram per day. These calculations are online. You don't have to write anything down. Really, this helps preserve muscle, protect your bone, and stabilize your blood glucose. The best options, of course, are going to be wild-caught fish, pasture-raised meats, collagen-rich bone broth. You can consider some phytoestrogens for a gentle support. There's a little bit of data to say that flax seeds, fermented soy like miso, or lentils, they contain compounds that gently stimulate those estrogen receptors. And so in the receptors in the gut and in bone tissue. So that's something to consider. Talk to your provider about that. And then really nourishing your gut lining. So what does that look like? Bone broth, collagen, peptides, glutamine really all help restore the gut lining and reduce inflammation. So really starting to incorporate that as a daily thing that you're consuming, whether that's doing collagen in your coffee or a smoothie, or incorporating bone broth into soups that you're making, things like that. You can add zinc, carnosine, and aloe vera. Aloe vera juice is really good for gut repair if there's a history of leaky gut or reflux. And then anti-inflammatory lifestyle eating. So really, we know a lot about the Mediterranean diet. That diet is really a low inflammatory diet. It supports heart health, things like that. So this diet is full of olive oil, fish, greens, berries, turmeric, ginger. There are many different variations of the Mediterranean diet, but it's definitely something to consider. Reduce or eliminate dairy. So dairy we know is very inflammatory. So that's something also to consider. Potentially get testing to see if you're sensitive to dairy. Or do a questionnaire to figure out if you have symptoms that really show that you are sensitive. And then gluten is another high inflammatory food. So you don't have to have celiac disease to be allergic or to be sensitive, where your immune system responds. And eliminating or reducing dairy or gluten if you're experiencing joint pain, fatigue, or brain fog might really help, because as gluten gets in to our body through those leaky junctions, right? The junctions are not as clear. It stimulates that inflammatory response that then inflammatory response spreads to other places, and so causes inflammation all over. And dairy and gluten are the two biggest things that do that. Okay, so let's talk about supplements that you can consider. Okay, you can consider a probiotic. Not every probiotic is considered equal. A lot of probiotics will die in your stomach before reaching anything or doing anything, and probiotics are a tricky conversation. So really looking or considering a spore-based probiotic to start, that has protection around it so that it doesn't get killed in the stomach by the stomach acid. So rotating that spore-based probiotic, something like Bacillus subtilis, every 2 to 3 months you can consider. And then considering probiotics that have Bifidobacterium longum and Lactobacillus plantarum. Both are really good. These strains reduce gut inflammation and support your immune resilience, especially in aging women. So that's something to consider. Okay, what else? Vitamin D3 with K2. This supports bone density, supports mood, supports your immune modulation, and the deficiency in your D vitamins is directly linked to worse gut permeability and hormone imbalance. You can consider omega-3s, DHA, and EPA from algae or fish oil. These also reduce gut inflammation, support mental, how your brain functions, support mood, and support skin. You can consider, if you have insulin resistance or weight gain has been an issue, supplements like berberine or inositol. Again, talk to your healthcare provider. These support glucose metabolism and act as a natural insulin sensitizer. So that's something that you might consider. What other things can you do? Lots of lifestyle interventions that you can do to really support your body. Okay, strength training is a non-negotiable. You need muscle. Strength training puts pressure on your bones to really help your bones stay strong. So it preserves your lean muscle mass. Strength training reduces blood sugar swings and it boosts your mood. So you can consider sauna or cold therapy, but remember, cold therapy, not as cold for women, is needed as it is for men. Both sauna and cold therapy reduce inflammation. They improve detoxification. Really, sauna is a great way to detoxify. Again, start low, go slow. If you've never been to a sauna, don't spend an hour in a sauna. You'll pass out and you'll never use a sauna again. So really ease into it, do your research, make sure that you're doing it in a safe way and you're hydrating, etc. Okay. What else? We know that in the all the time, and especially in the postmenopausal years, that social and purposeful living really play a huge role. And we know that there's even been studies about, people that live, our centenarians that live to 100, and how those folks tend to have a good social network as they are aging. So we know that isolation increases cortisol and gut inflammation. And so not feeling isolated is important. So how do we do that? Finding connection, finding purpose, finding ways for creative expression. These are all powerful tools for your gut brain balance. Imagine that, right? Connection and social expression help our mood, help our gut, help decrease inflammation. It's amazing. So let's review. Your gut is not just about digestion. Okay. It is a hormone factory. It is a detox hub. It's an immune command center. It does so many things. And optimizing your gut health can reduce the fluctuations in your hormones. It supports metabolism. It even protects your mood and your memory. Every life stage has unique gut hormone interactions that really need to be identified and optimized. And it's never too early to start supporting your gut. Remember, your gut is your gatekeeper, the gatekeeper of hormone balance. If your gut is inflamed, if it's sluggish, if it's overwhelmed, your hormones will never regulate properly, no matter how many supplements you take. And I want to stress that. So there are so many things that we can do without ever touching a supplement bottle. Yes, you can take supplements, but there are so many things that we can do to support our gut today. And really, in midlife, your body is asking for a new strategy. What may have worked in your 20s just isn't working. Your body's showing you signs. Maybe you're having more bloating. Maybe you're more constipated. Maybe you're having more mood swings. Your body is asking for a new strategy, more nourishment, deeper recovery, smarter movement, and targeted support. And so you're not broken. You're not broken. You just need to change what you're doing. What you were doing was working for a period of time, and it's time to tweak what you're doing, optimize it to where you are now. You're biologically shifting, and that's okay. That's all normal. Give your body what it needs to thrive in this new season. As you know, we have a tradition on this podcast, and that is to end each episode with a Life Optimizer challenge. And for this week's Life Optimizer challenge, I want to ask you to, or challenge you to, pick one of these gut health boosters that we talked about today. Just one. And that applies to the current life stage that you're in, and commit to it daily for 7 days. Track how you feel, track how your symptoms are, and see if you feel better, if you have more energy, if your mood is more stable, or maybe your cycle has improved, or what have you. Track it and let me know what's working. Let me know what you find. Hey, I did this and it really worked, or I did this and I felt nothing. It's interesting because I recently we went on vacation, and so I was like, I'm not taking any supplements. I'm not, adding any collagen, and I thought I was doing fine, and then I got home, and I'm like, my mood is different. Something has shifted. My body definitely felt it, whether I wanted to admit it or not. And so that was an interesting thing. So again, to review, in this episode, we helped you understand your body better. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend, share it with a sister, share it with a coworker, a daughter. Really, share it with people that you love, that are in your life. For sure, subscribe, rate, review, comment. Let me know how things are going. I really want to know how you're doing and what's working and what's potentially not working for you. And we're going to continue to go deeper and deeper in supporting our hormones and supporting our gut with every episode. Until next time, remember, tiny changes make a whole new you. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you soon.